Okay, right, if you're like me, it's a time of year when you need to put your electric fan on, and one of the most annoying things about electric fans is the lubrication dries out on them and they start to squeak or make horrible noises. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a way to solve that problem. First of all, make sure it's not plugged in. So there's the plug. Anyway, it's not plugged in. Make sure it's not plugged in. Otherwise you're going to get a nasty shock, literally. Right. Now, if some electric fans, they have rivets, right, or those special screws that you can't undo. Well, if you got one of those, I wouldn't recommend trying to hack into it, because you might actually end up cutting yourself or doing some more serious damage. Right, it's unplugged, and I'm going to remove the front plate first, because actually I don't think I need to take the back cover off, but we might do anyway, we'll see. It depends on yours, really. What you do is remove the front cover, get to the main armature, it's inside. Now on some of these, this particular bracket here is what contains the bearing, the front bearing. Now many of these have a little lug on the end, and it centres the bearing housing, so it's always centered for the spindle. Now the last thing you want to do is remove a bearing if it's riveted or if it's fixed in such a way that when you remove it you're going to have a trouble lining the center back up again. I wouldn't recommend removing it. Now I've already cleaned this earlier. I did remove the back cover. Now I've left the cover on this time simply because I decided to make the video in as safe as manner as possible. Now I don't even need to remove that, so I'm going to remove this front bearing housing clamp because it's self-centering, so we don't have to worry about that on this particular model. Now your fan might be quite hot if you've had it running, so be careful you don't burn yourself on it, because they can go quite hot, especially if they aren't running up to speed. So remove the front cover, remove the front bearing assembly very carefully. Now earlier on I cleaned all of this up because it was covered in grease. Let's see, I'll show you that. Now it's already cleaned up, the bearing's actually clean, because I'm not using oil anymore, I'm using grease, because one of the problems with those things is they dry out and they turn into glue, and they get very abrasive, and they can actually cause an awful lot of squawking, squeaking and howling and grating sounds, and it sounds like hell on earth is about to break loose. Well, that's because the lubrication's gone. Right, so we're not going to use grease or silicone grease or WD-40 because they all dry out and into a crispy substance. Now I'm going to show you what I'm using. Right, carefully move the armature, don't lose the washers. There's usually two at the bottom. Usually, I don't know if you can see it on here, but I think they're stuck to the other end actually. There's usually two plastic washers or metal ones depending on the brand at the top and at the bottom. There's two on here. I can just pull them out a bit so you can see. Right, there's two there, there's two washers. Now they're stuck together. That's fine. We're not going to use oil because it dries out and it causes a lot more problems. What we're going to use, now I'm going to get my cleaning wipe, just an ordinary cleaning wipe, clean it. It's hot, very hot. It's been running because it's quite warm weather. And we'll clean the bearing. Make sure you clean the bushes as well. That's at the back of the motor, the bearing at the back. You can see, oops, camera's gone off. Right, the bearing right at the back, you need to clean that with a cleaning wipe will do, you know, like a baby wipe or something like a kitchen wipe. Make sure you clean all the gunk off it. That's the main motor assembly, and you want to be very careful with that. You don't want to be touching the electrical parts. Right, once you've got that fully clean, get rid of all the oil. You probably need alcohol actually to remove the grease, but as I say, I cleaned this earlier, so I'm just really doing this just to show really. if I can get it on camera, that is. Right, when you got it nice and spotlessly clean, you're going to need lubrication, aren't you? Well, if you put oil on it, it's going to dry out after a few months or whatever, depending on how hot it gets, and then you're going to have that horrible squeaking sound. What I'm using is not oil. A lot of people don't know this, but this is talcum powder. Now, hang on, you say, what are you going to use talcum powder on your bearings? Well, actually, talcum powder is actually made out of French chalk. A lot of people don't know that. I didn't until recently. So there we go, French chalk. And all you need to do with that is dip your fingers in it, rub it onto your bearing. It's French chalk, remember, the manufacturer uses stuff all the time, and because it's already dry, it's not going to dry out, is it? Make sure you put plenty of French chalk on the bearing. Right. Right, once you've, sorry, I'm not on camera again. Once you've got plenty of it on there, carefully put it back together again. So we're not using any oil. Make sure your bearing is, work your French chalk in. Remember, it's going to scrape a bit until we get the top bearing on. Put a bit more on for good measure, because it drops off easily unless you lose something sticky to make it stick. Now I'm going to put a little bit inside the bearing, because it's powder, don't forget, it's not liquid. And I'll put the bearing back together again. Remember, sometimes these bearings are going one way better than the other, so you might have to rotate it, make sure it runs easy, and then put the screws back in. Now you can do what I also do, is mix it with wax. Now you say, hang on, where's she going now? Right. The powder's very loose, and it does fly around a bit, and it doesn't stick very well, so you can use a bit of car wax, triple wax I was using earlier, and because it dries into a powder and it's a very slippery substance. I've tried both actually. I've tried it with just car wax, but it didn't work too well, and also mixed the French chalk, which is talcum powder, in with the car wax, make a small paste, and you can coat that on the bearing, but make sure you've got plenty of French chalk mixed in with it, because when it dries out, the French chalk is what it's going to be riding on, remember. Okay, it's stiff now, so I've done something wrong. It's very stiff. Make sure it turns easily. What's probably happened is I probably rotated the bracket around, and it probably doesn't like it in that position, so you have to make sure you get the bracket in such a way that the armature will rotate easily. Just make sure everything turns easily. Now another trick I'll show you in a minute. When you get it all back together, one of the things that happens is the bottom bearing can rotate. Make sure it's centered. Bottom bearing can rotate out of position, as in the azimuth. If you don't know what azimuth means, go and look it up on the internet. If the azimuth is slightly out of alignment, your bearings are not going to be running against a flat surface. They're going to be running at an angle. So you need to tighten the screws gently, so it's not too tight, just a little bit. Now if you haven't got a centre, if yours don't automatically centre itself, then you're not going to want to do this, so don't, but just tap left, right, up and down. Now because mine's got centre collars on it, it will always keep it in the centre. Now the reason I'm doing this as well, you could also do this when you want to centre the bearing. So if yours isn't got the collars on to keep the bearing centred, what you can do is tighten the screws up slightly, and if it's stiff, just gently tap one way. That's it, it's free now. Or tap it another way, and once you got it free, tighten the screws up properly. Make sure that there's no... Might's gone tight again. Tap. Only lightly, don't use a hammer, it will destroy it. I'm using a screwdriver butt. Right, it's free as anything now. We do that to help the bearings, the bushes in the centre, line themselves, and it's dead centre now. It's very important that we get this running easily, otherwise it will seize up on you. Right, that's running dead easy. Okay, now we put the cover back on. It's always the tricky part. Make sure if you when you're putting screws back in, many people just force the screwdriver around and twist it until it tightens. What you need to do is turn the screw back a bit until it drops into the original thread that it made before, or use your fingers and find the thread. Otherwise you're going to cut a new thread, and eventually the screws won't have anything to bite into and they'll just fall out, go round and round and round. So, right. We've got that. Make sure the front cover's nice and tight. You can obviously take the whole thing apart, but you don't have to do if you can get to it and clean the back bearing. Right, that's free. Don't forget this is running on talcum powder, which is French chalk. Now put the front cover back on. Move the mic because I'm going to deafen you again. Make sure you get the thread. Tighten it all up. I mean, all these fans are all slightly different, so you've got, you know, I don't think I've got the thread. I think I'm going at an angle. Yeah, it's called cross threading, but it's only a plastic thing. These are easy to get cross threaded because they don't. Right, that's right. Now we're going to put the band back on. And it's a left hand thread, so you have to screw the front thing on anti-clockwise. A lot of fans are. Put the cover on. Don't forget, there's no oil on it. It's just French chalk, talcum powder. Turn it on. Oh, it's not on. Not plugged in yet. Plug it in. Give it a while to settle in. There you go. That's on low power. Full power. Quiet as a mouse. That's French chalk. No oil. And it shouldn't dry out. Obviously you might have to put some more French chalk on at some point in the future, obviously, because everything wears away gradually. But make sure the bearings are clean, otherwise it's not gonna. It's gonna be grinding against metal. You know, if you've got bits of metal grit in there, it's gonna be a little bit gritty. But it works really well. So that's how you can lubricate your fan without oil. This is the lip. This is what centres the bearing into the chassis, the actual case, that little round donut shape. It actually keeps the bearing dead centre.